Critics of the Bible will sometimes say that it's full of mistakes and therefore can't come from a divine source. One of the mistakes they often point to is the story of creation in Genesis 1, because the order of creation doesn't seem to align with current scientific discoveries. Welcome to the 14th video about the book, The Creator Revealed. In this video, we look at chapter 13, The Order of Creation. Recall in the last video, we saw that the creation story is not told from a perspective of God looking onto the earth from out in space somewhere, but from the surface of the earth, where the Spirit of God is moving. And from the surface of the earth is dark because of the thick atmosphere and interplanetary dust and debris, and the earth is watery and formless and void. On day one, God says, "Let there be light," and He creates light. That is, the interplanetary dust begins to settle and the atmosphere begins to thin, and where the earth was first dark, it's now light in day and dark at night. It's like a cloudy day or cloudy night. You can see that it's day or night, even though you still can't see the sun and the moon and the stars. And that would be one of the first things that happened on the primordial earth. On day two, God separates the waters above from the waters below. That is the clouds from the ocean. He starts a water cycle. And that would have been one of the next things that happens on the early earth as it develops. On day three, God creates the dry land. The continents form. We now know that the earth was basically a world full of water for about the first 1.5 billion years. And then over a relatively short period of time geologically, about 500 million years, the continents form. Day three is exactly where it's supposed to be in the archaeological and fossil record. And you can see that in a chart developed by Peter Ward and Donald Brownlee in the book Rare Earth, where they show that for about 1.5 billion years, the Earth is basically a water world, and then relatively quickly the continents form. Just like the Bible says, over a brief period of time on day three, the continents form. On day four, the lights in the heavens appear. The Hebrew verb that's used could be translated, God had made them. He made them in the beginning when He created the heavens and the earth. But on day four, the atmosphere thins and the dust clears, and you can finally see the sun and the moon and the stars, which had been there all along. This understanding the story on the surface of the earth from the perspective on the earth, not in outer space, explains why you see the light on day one, but you can't yet see the heavenly objects till day four. And it doesn't say that they were created on day four. It says they appeared because God had made them previously. On day five, God fills the seas with fish and He fills the air with birds. And some of those animals described are a special Hebrew word, nephesh, which literally means soul. And I think of the nephesh animals as higher mammals. So all of the sea creatures and all the birds aren't described on day five. But in particular, some of those that are described are those that would interact with humans, those higher mammals that have what we would think of as emotional or feelings or some self-awareness in some sense. On day six, God creates land animals. But again, the word that's used is only the nephesh. We're not talking about all land animals. For instance, dinosaurs are not mentioned. They would have been created on much earlier days, at least 250 million years ago or so. But the animals that are created on day six are the beasts of the field and the cattle, those things that humans would interact with and hunt and domesticate. It's the nephesh, the soulless creatures, the higher mammals. And then finally on day six, God creates humans, the highest creation of all, beings that will have a spiritual part to them and which can interact with God. And when told from the surface of the earth, where you understand that light appears on day one and that the heavenly bodies, the sun and moon and stars, appear on day four, and that the animals that are created on day six are the higher land mammals, all told from the perspective on the surface of the earth, then the order of creation actually perfectly agrees with what we understand from scientific discovery. And once again, we see that this book, written some 3,400 years ago, gives an order of creation in perfect agreement with what we see in science when we understand the perspective of the story told on the surface of the earth.